Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
It's Saturday, the 29th of June. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw election campaigning and betting scandals. Julian Assange finally free, England stumbled to the last 16 of the Euros, and Travis Kelce spilling royal tea.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
With the clock ticking down to next week's general election, the big story this week continued to be the scandal over Tory insiders placing bets on the election date. Last weekend saw a Ford Tory party official become embroiled in the Gambling Commission investigation as the Tories' chief data officer had to step down from the campaign on a leave of absence. Rishi Sunak said he's incredibly angry over the scandal, but has yet to take any firmer action, with outgoing Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove drawing comparisons with Partygate. Home Secretary James Cleverly said that the Gambling Commission investigation is continuing and needs to be allowed to complete its work.
I'm not in any way going to defend the actions of these individuals, but I'm also conscious that I don't have the full details. The only organisation that does is the Gambling Commission, and it is right that they take action.
With rumours circulating in Westminster that more Tory figures would be implicated, Lib Dem Deputy Leader Daisy Cooper said the Prime Minister needs to take firm action.
The Conservatives are clearly knee-deep in this awful, awful scandal. I think for many people it will remind them of the Partygate times. Liberal Democrats have already called on the Prime Minister to intervene personally to make sure that every single person who is being investigated is suspended immediately.
The betting issue was a recurring theme all week, with both Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer in the hot seat at the Sun's headquarters on Monday evening. Starmer faced questioning over the NHS migrants and Jeremy Corbyn, but he acquitted himself pretty well. Rishi Sunak was under pressure on the election day gambling scandal, and he refused once again to get into the details, but reiterated how angry the betting mess has made him.
Well, it's important to remember that the Gambling Commission investigations are independent, but what I can tell you is we have been conducting our own internal inquiries and will of course act on any relevant findings.
With senior Tory figures now calling for a ban on political betting, Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey was happy to pile on the pressure on Rishi and his party.
Their failure to act is A, making people more angry, and B, it's sort of symptomatic of the chaos and almost corruption amongst the Conservatives. There seems to be one rule for the Conservatives and another rule for the rest of us, and that is not right.
A new poll from YouGov on Tuesday showed that only 3% of people think Rishi Sunak has handled the ongoing betting scandal very well. Tuesday did at least see the Tories take action as they formally pulled support for the 2 candidates identified so far as the Gambling Commission investigation continues. There are more revelations, however, with a Welsh Tory politician being investigated, along with 5 more police officers suspended over betting on election dates. One of the Tory candidates who has had party support withdrawn, Craig Williams, said in a video statement on X that he's going to keep fighting to retain his seat.
I committed an error of judgment, not an offence, and I want to reiterate my apology directly to you. I'm fully cooperating with routine inquiries for the Gambling Commission, and I intend to clear my name.
Labour also had to suspend a parliamentary candidate on Tuesday after Kevin Craig was pinged by the Gambling Commission, who have launched an investigation. It appears he placed a bet on himself to lose, and he says he deeply regrets it and planned to give any winnings to charity. Labour's National Campaign Coordinator Pat McFadden can't understand why it's taken the Tories so long to act on their issue.
It's taken Rishi Sunak the best part of 2 weeks to act on this. That is just weak leadership. And what the whole thing shows is that if the Conservative Party won again on the 4th of July, they would think they could get away with anything.
By Friday morning, the Met Police had announced that 7 officers are now under investigation over betting around the date of the general election. Rishi Sunak continues to be dogged by questions about who knew what, and he was in Derbyshire on Thursday trying to make pottery while the press hounded him about when Craig Williams, his parliamentary aide, was told about the election date. He continues to refuse to discuss the matter because of internal inquiries, although there's no legal grounds that he can't. Things got quite heated with Sam Coates from Sky.
You know the answer to the question whether
we
or not
have done
you told Craig
internal
Williams
inquiries
yes or
of
no.
our own, and as a result of those have suspended candidates.
I've been clear that anyone who has broken the rules should face the full consequences of the law. I will ensure they're booted out of the party.
There's been no good news from the polls for the Tories this week as they continue to hover around the 20% mark and look to be on track for one of the worst results in their history. Nigel Farage and Reform UK have been making ground across the last few weeks. But as the media spotlight focused on the Brexit fan, there were some tough questions from the BBC's Nick Robinson on the BBC's Panorama programme. Farage accused the West of provoking Vladimir Putin into attacking Ukraine as he linked NATO expansion with Putin's invasion. The remarks were widely condemned by both Tory and Labour politicians, including Prime Minister Rishi Sunak.
Now, what he said was completely wrong and only plays into Putin's hands. This is a man who deployed nerve agents on the streets of Britain, and this kind of appeasement is dangerous for Britain's security and only emboldens Putin further.
Security Minister Tom Tugendhat described Farage as Putin's poodle, while Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer was equally quick to condemn the remarks from the Reform leader.
Farage's comments are disgraceful. We have always stood behind Ukraine and supported Ukraine, and so far we've done it united across Parliament.
After all the fanfare of Manifesto Week, which seemed to last for at least 2 weeks, it turns out that somebody actually does read the various parties' policy documents. That somebody is the Institute of Fiscal Studies, and the think tank held a press conference on Monday to highlight the poor state of the nation's finances and to analyse the many and various promises made in manifestos. IFS Director Paul Johnson said that unless the economy starts to grow pretty quickly, both Labour and the Tories face a grim picture. However, he was particularly scathing about what he called unrealistic proposals from the Greens and Reform UK in particular.
They offer much bigger numbers, very exciting radical policies. But the way that they suggest that their radical reforms can realistically make a positive difference does help to poison the political debate. It makes the other parties look feeble when you say, we could do all this stuff. They can't.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer was happy to defend both his manifesto and Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves.
Our manifesto is fully costed and fully funded, and that's really important because economic stability is the foundation on which we grow the economy and create wealth in this country.
Prime Minister Rishi Sunak didn't have much time for campaigning on Tuesday. He was busy on official duties. Emperor Naruhito, ruler of the Chrysanthemum throne, and Empress Masako of Japan were in the UK for a state visit, which saw a formal welcome by the King and a lunch at Buckingham Palace. Meanwhile, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer was at the event with Idris Elba to discuss the problem of knife crime, vowing to make tackling it a moral mission. On LBC, Nick Ferrari was hosting a tetchy debate on immigration featuring Home Secretary James Cleverly and Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. They clashed over the difference between the Tories' Rwanda plan and Labour's policies.
The challenge in Europe is more stark than the challenge in the UK. So the arrangement that you're talking about will inevitably mean the UK becomes a net recipient of illegal migrants.
Yvette Cooper was dismissive of the numbers that James Cleverly provided.
This is just invented. This is just fantasy. This is just total garbage. No, I mean, seriously. No, he shouldn't be allowed to just, basically make stuff up or tell lies. I mean, that is just not on.
All eyes were on Nottingham on Wednesday evening as Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak went head-to-head in a BBC leaders' debate. Radio 4's Michal Hussain hosted an event as the clock runs out on the election campaign. The format saw the two leaders face questions from the audience with no prior knowledge of what was to be asked, and this gentleman certainly got the audience gasping.
Mr Sunak, you're a pretty mediocre Prime Minister. Sir Keir, I think that your strings are being pulled by members of the Labour Party. Are you two really the best we've got to be the next Prime Minister of our great country?
The debate was bad-tempered, with Rishi pushing hard to land blows on immigration and tax, including repeating the line about Labour tax rises that had been debunked. Polling afterwards showed the audience scored it a draw, but Starmer scored better on many key values, while 63% found the debate frustrating. This was one exchange on the welfare bill, which ended with Starmer scolding Sunak.
What is wrong that if someone is offered a job and they can do that job and they turn it down, that's wrong?
No, there's nothing wrong with that, and I just want to address Beverly's point.
You opposed it when I announced it. You literally opposed it.
If you listen to people in the audience across the country more often, you might not be quite so out of touch.
In what probably is not a surprising development, an undercover Channel 4 reporter caught several senior Reform figures making racist and homophobic remarks while campaigning in Clacton on Thursday. Meanwhile, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer sat down with both Sky News and ITV to discuss how long he might plan to be Prime Minister for.
A decade indicates
how long I think it's going to take for the fundamental change, which will see a country transformed, and that years later people will be able to look back and say that was a real game-changing government.
After a 14-year battle, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was finally released from prison this week. Assange and his organisation WikiLeaks released hundreds of thousands of classified documents about the US war in Afghanistan in 2010, which sparked international controversy and a prolonged pursuit of Assange by the American government. He was sought for extradition to Sweden over sexual assault charges and took refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy for 7 years, then ended up in prison in the UK awaiting extradition to the US. WikiLeaks posted on social media a video of its founder boarding a flight at London Stansted Airport on Monday evening with a pre-recorded statement by his wife, Stella.
Things are moving very quickly, and it's very difficult for us to plan or even play out the next few hours and days. But if everything goes well, Julian will be on a plane on the way to freedom.
Wednesday morning saw Julian Assange in court in Saipan, a US island territory in the Northern Mariana Islands. He was flown there via Bangkok on a chartered jet and pled guilty to one charge of conspiring to obtain and disclose classified US national defence documents. As part of a plea deal he finally reached with US authorities, and now the court hearing is over, he will fly on to Australia as a free man, taking into consideration the time he has already served in Belmarsh prison. He's barred from ever entering the United States. There was widespread relief at the news, and his wife Stella, a human rights lawyer, has already flown to Australia with their 2 sons to meet him. Australian PM Anthony Albanese says Assange has suffered enough.
Regardless of the views that people have about Mr Assange's activities, the case has dragged on for too long. There's nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration, and we want him brought home to Australia.
When he arrived in Canberra, he was greeted by his father, his wife and his legal team. He didn't appear at the press conference where his wife Stella said he will need time to recover from what he's been through and asked the media to let our family be a family. The Amnesty International Secretary-General Agnes Callamard welcomed Assange's release and said it's a rare day to see a victory for human rights and press freedom.
Today is a day for celebration. I'm happy for all of us who fight for press freedom around the world. It's not a perfect day, but it is as close as it can get.
But even as Julian Assange was returning to Australia a free man, Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich's trial was beginning in Russia. He's been imprisoned for 15 months so far in a Moscow jail after being arrested on espionage charges. The trial is taking place in the remote city of Yekaterinburg, where he was originally arrested and accused of collecting classified information about a tank manufacturing plant to pass on to the CIA. No evidence has been presented. The trial is being held behind closed doors and the maximum sentence could be 20 years. John Locke, an associate fellow of Chatham House, said it's pretty clear what the verdict is likely to be.
The judge will, possibly already written part of that ruling. At least they are going to receive an instruction about what to do. So you can't describe this in any way as, a system rooted in rule of law. The outcome is predetermined.
The International Criminal Court issued 2 new warrants for arrest on Tuesday. They're accusing former Russian Defence Minister Sergei Shoigu and his Chief of Staff, Valery Gerasimov, of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The charges follow Russia's continued attacks on civilian targets in Ukraine and were welcomed by the Ukrainian President's Chief of Staff, Andriy Yermak. There was good news for Ukraine as the European Union formally began accession talks with Ukraine and Moldova. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen welcomed the delegations to the conference in Luxembourg.
We stand at the threshold of a significant and transformative moment for these 2 countries and for our union. And we celebrate the values and principles that bind us together.
Thursday marked a big day for Ukraine as President Zelensky was in Brussels to meet with the 27 EU leaders and sign a new security agreement with the EU. It covers 9 specific areas around security and defence policy. And he posed for photos afterwards with EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Charles Michel. Zelensky is still hoping to develop a plan for peace.
We have to find and to prepare this plan and to put this plan on the table. We don't have too much time, because we have wounded and dead people on the battlefield and through civilians. That's why we don't want to have this war during years.
Still to come in the Standout 7, Joe Biden stumbles in the first US presidential debate and Travis Kelce spills some royal tea.
Right after this.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous two-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome back.
Thursday night in the US saw Donald Trump and Joe Biden go head-to-head in the first debate of the presidential campaign. The debate was hosted by CNN and there were some unusual tweaks to the traditional debating format. There were mute buttons intended to stop the two candidates speaking over each other, and there was no audience. The debate did not go well for Joe, who sounded hoarse and hesitant while CNN failed to fact-check any of Trump's statements.
He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone.
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy.
They clashed over January 6th over abortion rights and even over golf handicaps. And Trump continued to make up stories and denying saying things that have been verified by witnesses. Democrats were concerned that Biden did not do well, with Vice President Kamala Harris taking to the airwaves to defend her boss after the debate.
What we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump on all of the issues that matter to the American people. Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish.
This week saw the final group stages of the Euros take place as the lineup for the last 16 of the tournament was finalised. That meant on Tuesday in Group C, Denmark faced Serbia while England took on Slovenia. There were no goals at all in Group C, though levelling all teams with 1 point, which was enough to see England top the group with just 5 points. Manager Gareth Southgate got plastic beer cups thrown at him and his team were booed off by England fans after the goalless draw. But he was trying to put his best foot forward after the game.
Well, I thought we were much improved with the ball. We've created some good openings, and at the moment, it's hard work for us. We're not quite getting that break in front of goal. I understand some reactions, but it's a strange environment we're playing in.
England now face Slovakia on Sunday, and Roy Keane thinks Gareth Southgate should be starting Cole Palmer.
The one I'm always excited to watch. I think Palmer certainly is that X factor. But when he came on, every time he gets the ball, you think something's going to happen. So there was certainly a bit more flow to their game the last 15 or 20 minutes, but still no end product. They didn't really test the goalkeeper. But there's one or two positives, obviously, with the clean sheet. But again, we go back to it. They need to show a little bit more quality in the attacking areas.
Taylor Swift wowed London with her Wembley shows last weekend. This weekend, she's off to Dublin to play 3 nights and she's back in London for 5 more nights in August. Her UK gigs had celebrities swarming around the backstage area, with everyone from Tom Cruise and Prince William queuing up for selfies. London also saw the onstage debut of Travis Kelce, who seemed to be having the time of his life. He and brother Jason had their own podcast called New Heights, and in the latest episode they spilled some high quality Royal Tay tea.
Dude, he was the coolest mother. He was so cool.
He's a good dude.
Obviously, we're backstage meeting him. He was there with little George and Charlotte. They were an absolute delight to meet. Wasn't sure if I was supposed to bow to them, curtsy, just be an American idiot and shake their hand.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Have a question or need how-to advice? Just ask Meta AI. Whether you want to design a marathon training program or you're curious what planets are visible in tonight's sky, Meta AI has the answers. It can also summarize your class notes, visualize your ideas, and so much more. It's the most advanced AI at your fingertips. Expand your world with Meta AI. Now on Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, and Messenger.